Hey everyone. Welcome to Zoetic Chat. Unleash your life's journey with me, Jan Mayfield. This ultimate podcast for spiritual guidance will answer all your life, soul and spiritual questions. I'm thrilled to have you join me every week. My vast knowledge, wisdom and experience are crucial to your personal and spiritual growth. Together we will explore a variety of topics and delve deeply into the truths of my life and spiritual path. Don't forget to sign up to my newsletter at janmayfield.com. Hey everyone. Welcome to Zoetic Chat. Unleash your life's journey with me, Jan Mayfield. I'm so excited to be here doing this podcast for you. I want it to be one where you feel safe and a place for you to come to get answers on your spiritual path. There's so many people that I connect with these days that have a lot of confusion around the different signs and symbols that they get in, the different synchronicities in their life. They can't really work them out. Well, I've had many years of working on my spiritual path and being a psychic medium that I can help you with all of that. And I think it's really important to get help when you're young, because you can go through life knowing that you've got something there, that there's a connection to something spiritual or a great intuitive sense, but you don't do anything about it. And I think it's such a shame, especially in the 21st century, when people don't connect to that spiritual element of their life, because in my opinion, it does enhance anything and everything that you're doing. And it gives you almost a different dimension to work in and to work with. And it helps you to see things differently. And as you progress on your spiritual path, I found that the answers to my questions and queries and my strength to be able to make changes in my life, to take action and to feel more powerful and passionate about the things that I do are second to none the further I've gone on my spiritual path. When I was dipping in and dipping out of my spiritual path, I was dipping in and dipping out of life also. So I believe that connecting to your spiritual path, spiritual development and personal development go hand in hand. And I do run workshops and classes and courses on the spiritual and personal development. One enhances the other, but ultimately, as you move forward on your path, the two really do need to go together. In this podcast, I've got quite a lot of questions that have been given to me, and I will be addressing them over the coming weeks. The first question I want to address is, when did you first see spirit? Many people ask me this, and my answer is, when I was around 3 years old, we lived in rather a large house, but part of it was turned into a grocery store. My mum and dad sold anything that you needed, tinned fruit, tinned vegetables, sweet chocolate, fresh meat, fresh bread, cooked meats, all those kind of things, all the different groceries that you can just go and fetch. And this was in a time before there were lots and lots of large supermarkets. In fact, they were only just starting to open when my mum and dad had this shop. And I can remember a little alleyway where we used to keep the goldfish. I can remember going out at the back and through the garden, and the other side was a big piles of cut logs. There used to be a man that cut down trees and cut the logs, and then he would sell the logs. And I can always remember looking at this pile of wood, and for some reason I was drawn to it. And there was always moss covering the logs from the dampness. And I love moss. I loved it then, and I love it now. I like to touch it. I like to feel it. I like to stroke it. And I like to feel the sponginess of it. If moss could be a carpet, it would just be so beautiful. And and relaxing and elegant to walk on and sit on. And if moss was a person, it would be that ultimate person that you could marry, the one that you'd marry and know that you would be together for the rest of your life. We're going back to the house. It was a big old house. And my bedroom, I can remember going in the bedroom door. The wall of the door had my headboard on it. I slept in a double bed, which faced the window. To the right-hand side of that was a chair. Now, this chair is a chair that you would find in an old people's home. You know, you can see all the ladies and gentlemen lined up in these chairs, waiting for the next meal, waiting for a drink, waiting for a relative. They're called the waiting chairs, aren't they? Well, there was a waiting chair in my bedroom, and a lady used to show herself to me, an old lady. She came through as an old lady. One day I'll find out who she is. Right now at this moment, I don't know who she is or who she was. But I do know that sometimes I used to be a little bit frightened of her, and I used to pull the covers up around just over my eyes, and then I would peep out and see if she was still there. But on other occasions, I'd welcome her and I'd listen to what she had to say to me. If I take my mind back to that 3-year-old, I can't really hear what she said. But if I'm the person that I am now and I'm recalling the words, I can remember them. It's like they're being given to me again. I hope you can understand that. And she's helped me throughout my life, especially since I got to say about 27. I can remember the feeling of her coming to me, and then I would have the vision of her sitting in that chair. And she has helped me throughout my life. We didn't live for very long in that house. I don't remember. My dad still had a full-time job, so my mum ran it. She had my sister, who was 4 years younger than me. So we were at home together. Well, I was at home on my own. Then I went to school. Whilst I was in that house, I can remember the walk to school on winter's days when the snow was higher than my welly boots. And I used to make the walk. But I never felt alone. I always felt that someone was walking with me. My mum would stand in the road and wave me goodbye, but she'd never walk me to school. And at times I used to think, why am I on my own? But I never felt lonely. And that feeling has carried on, throughout my life. I've never felt lonely or alone. And I've been single and on my own for many, many years, living alone, but never alone. There's always been a spirit or an energy or a feeling wherever I've lived. I know for many years there was a man in the hallway of every home that I've had, and even to the point of hotels if I've been away. This man was dressed, I can't say he was a monk, but he had a hood on that folded on his shoulders, came over his face, and he would always look down, so I never saw his face. I always knew that he was protecting me, and he never came into the room, any room that was off of the hallway. He always paced the hallway very slowly, and he would have his hands in the long sleeves of the dress almost that he was wearing. And I felt safe with him. And I knew that one day he would show himself to me. And he did. And I know who he is. But that's for another episode. I'll tell you more about that then. But I felt safe. And I've always felt safe with the different energies and spirits that come around me. I remember one time when, after my grandmother had passed, my grandma on my mum's side, my mum's mum, I was in my house and my children were small, and I used to do quite a lot of sewing, using the sewing machine and needle and thread. And I'd sit there at the table with my sewing machine, and the window was to the right of me. So every now and again I'd stop and I'd look out of the window, and the doorway from the hall was directly to my left. And one day I was sitting there sewing, and I looked up and over to the door, and there stood my grandmother. I saw her in full vision, just as if she was a human being. She wasn't see-through or anything like that people report. And I just looked at her, and in my mind, I'm like, holy moly. And I was remember thinking, oh, it's my grandma, it's my grandma. And I felt excited in my belly. My heart started beating fast, and she started to walk over to me. It brings tears to my eyes as I think about it. She started to walk over to me, and she put her arm around my shoulders and looked down, so her head was almost at the level of mine. And she was looking at what I was sewing, and it was clothes for my children. I liked sewing, and clothes were quite expensive in those days. And I always told myself that if I was lucky enough to have children, that I wouldn't work until they went to school. I think I'd actually only got one. No, I'd got both of my children when she died. That's correct. So one might have been at play school or in bed, but I know it was daytime, and the children weren't in the same room as me, and they were young. I felt her arm across my shoulder, and I felt proud to be receiving her. And I remember I said to her, am I doing all right, Nan? I wanted some kind of confirmation from her that everything was right. And she said to me, she squoze her hand that was on my right hand shoulder. She squoze my shoulder and says, you'll always do all right, you will. Never forget that you will always do and be all right. And I stopped sewing, and I remember leaning back in the chair, and she said, you will always find love, and love will always come to you. You will find the love that I had with your grandfather, and you will end your days with your love. It's actually choking me up quite a bit whilst I'm recalling this. And she looked at my sewing machine and encouraged me to carry on and to live in the moment that I'd got in my life. So in that moment, I was sewing because that's what I was doing. Maybe in the next moment, I'd be cooking dinner or going out for a walk. But at that moment, in that time, she seemed to stay with me for minutes and minutes, going into 5 or 10. But equally, it could have been just a flash that she was there. And I remember thanking her and telling her how much I loved her. And then she just took her arm off of my shoulder and began to walk towards the door. And even in my mind's eye now, as I think about that day, I can see her walking into the hallway, and then she just vanished. She didn't become see-through. She just went. She didn't walk through a wall. She just went. Her energy went into the dimension that she came from. It was such a special time. Such a special time. Going on from that, another very, very special time of having an energy with me was my partner. He passed from a subarachnoid hemorrhage, here 1 minute, gone the next scenario. But we did keep him on life support because we donated his organs. And that was an that was an experience. Being in the hospital with your partner on life support and his body twitching And I thought he was still alive. He was under the false impression that they were still alive. But I kept being reassured that it was just an involuntary kind of a movement that they do when they're on life support. But when it's your first time seeing anything like that, you wonder, don't you? But anyway, so he did good. He donated. I can't remember everything. Definitely eyes. I don't know. I think kidney and something to do with liver. I can't remember all of it now. It's over 30 years ago. But yeah. And I remember after he passed and after his funeral, cremation, I was in bed and I'd kept his leather jacket. Other things, I'd moved on to other people in charity shops because there was no need to keep them. And I had his leather jacket in my bed, and that's where I kept it for a good few months. I remember one night I was laying there looking up at the ceiling. My door was closed. I always used to sleep with my door closed, and I still do. And I remember looking up to where my door was, and I saw this black light, black energy. And it could have been coming from my door and going up to the ceiling, but it started going around where the ceiling joins the wall. It started going around there, along the wall. And the further it went, the bigger and more dense it became. And I watched it. I didn't get out of bed. I got no phone with a camera then. And I hadn't got my camera in my bedroom. And I just watched this black energy go around. And then it was on the wall opposite my bed. And I was just watching it. And it was getting bigger and bigger. And as I just kept watching it, I didn't do anything or really say anything. And then I watched it come around so it would be at the right-hand side of my bed. And that energy then sort of fell down by the side of the bed. And in my mind, I'm like, whoa, what's going to happen now? Because it was one thing, it being in the corner, and then another thing, it being by the side of my bed. But it was a vertical energy, a vertical dark energy. But I wasn't frightened. I wasn't scared. And I didn't feel that I needed to get out of bed and run. And in fact, I almost felt paralyzed. I wasn't, but I didn't feel that I wanted to move. And I looked and watched this black shape, and it changed into my partner. It was him, but he was wearing the leather jacket, but it was on my bed also. And he was in his black trousers that he nearly always wore. He was in his white shirt that he would wear when he went out. He used to wear a gold necklace inside his shirt. He got the same haircut, and I couldn't see his shoes. The same belt on his trousers that he would have had the last time I actually saw him alive. So it was comforting. He didn't say too much. He said that I would be all right. And he told me that I would find love. To date, I still need that love, or want that love, or know that I will have that love that he was talking about. He wasn't particularly spiritual or religious or anything like that. He was just a normal guy. Invariably, conversations did turn to the spiritual side of life. And we did have occasions where we'd had light bulbs pop when we were talking about spiritual happenings and things like that. They weren't scary either. But for him to be standing next to my bed was just another confirmation that life goes on, really. I enjoyed the feeling of him standing there. And he did tell me that he would always look after the children and that he would always be there for me to call upon him. He never actually said that he would always be there for me, but I could call upon him. However, throughout my life, there has been many times when I've felt his energy and seen a vision of him. So knowing that he is there, and sometimes I didn't even call upon him and he was there to help me, to move me through a situation, to give me the confidence in any given situations. So that's 3 sightings, if you like, of spiritual energy that I've had in my life that were very, very special. There's many more, but that's loved ones that was very special to me. And I will reveal more as the episodes go by. One of the other questions that I wanted to address in this episode is, have you ever encountered a spirit you were afraid of? If so, what did you do? I haven't encountered any spirits that I have been afraid of. However, when I read that question or think about that question, I'm taken to when I used to work with a paranormal group, and we were down in a cellar. We were down in a cellar where there were, it must have been in a police station or a court. I can't remember the exact location. I know that I was underground, but I also know that there was a pathway leading up out of the underground cellars. And it was very dark in there. We'd been doing Ouija boards and calling out and receiving different knockings throughout the building. But on this one particular occasion, we were down in the cellars and there was a group of us, probably about 8. And then there was someone else that was leading the discussion. So I was there as the medium, really. And we heard noises at the end of the corridor that led outside. You couldn't see anything because it was so dark. All we could do was hear and see and sense, We could sense and have that knowing feeling. But I remember looking down that corridor. I was standing exactly opposite the corridor. And I remember the darkness changing. So the dark black changed to dark greys and dark blacks and lighter greys. And I saw an image coming towards me. And out of the corner of my mouth, I'm like, can you see that? Can you see that? But I didn't want to stop looking in case it disappeared. I wanted to see it more. And as it came through, it was like it was coming through a mist, but then it revealed itself. It was a man, and I can see the man's face and eyes now. And I just looked over into the corner of my room whilst I'm sitting here, and I saw a blue light. Blue light as in blue dots light. Spirit often show themselves with as if you've thrown small lights against a wall. Well, they were blue small lights. I don't know how that is significant to what I'm talking about now, but it's energy showing itself. And I can see now in my mind's eye the eyes of this man. The eyes were almond shaped, but quite wide almond shape with very deep, dark brown eyes. His face was chiseled and almost thin from malnutrition, not chiseled because they were working on becoming a model or something like that, you know. It wasn't that, it was more malnutrition. And he stared at me in my eyes. And I can see that stare now. But it didn't frighten me. It did make my stomach turn over and give me the, what's that feeling? But I didn't feel scared as if I wanted to run. And to date, I haven't ran from an energy, a spirit, whatever you want to call it. I haven't ran from it. I've always faced it and wanted more from it, but there were no more came from that. But 2 other people did see it, and we discussed how we felt afterwards. So no, I haven't encountered a spirit that I was afraid of, but I've encountered many spiritual energies that I wanted more from. That's not to say that I'm never going to encounter one that I could be afraid of. So that's to answer 2 questions. On each of my podcasts, I will answer questions that you, the viewer, have sent in to me, and I will answer them as honestly as I can. I will be doing a lot of spiritual and personal development because I do believe that the 2 go together very strongly, and I want to share that with you. I want to share my life and spiritual experiences because they in turn will help you. My life experiences have been vast, and I'm very, very happy and content to be the age that I am now with all that history behind me, bringing forward what I need from those experiences to help you. And I will not hide anything from you. And if I feel you need to know something, I shall share that with you. But please do send in your questions, and I will include them in my future podcasts. I will have guests on here who will be talking about their spiritual life, and I will be giving live readings to people and also helping people in their personal development. So we'll be working together, and I'm going to have some case studies of that. So in turn, that will help you. I want you to be successful. I want you to be the best version of yourself ever. Whatever age you are now listening to this, at this age that you are, you need to connect to your soul, spiritual purpose to take you where you need to go in your life. And to be the actual best version of you is paramount. It will give you such a different take on life. It will help your life to flow, and you will feel a freedom. You hear people talking about they want freedom in their life. They crave for freedom, but freedom isn't about being alone and being free. It's about connecting to your soul and feeling that inner freedom and that inner guidance that you're given at any given time, to feel that connection in all scenarios of your life. So, for example, you can be with a friend that's not very happy, that you're consoling, that might be grieving, and you can be empathic towards that person. But you in yourself, because you are fully connected to your soul energy, can still have that feeling and knowing that you are doing what you should be doing, and not having that feeling of grief, but you can empathize with that person. It takes a long time to work with your soul and work on why your soul is here. But as soon as you connect to it, you won't go back in your life. You'll never change what you've learned over time, and you will feed out of your life all the positivities that you can then share with other people. I can't wait to share my next episode with you, and I look forward to connecting with you many, many more times in life. Thank you so much for being here today. Hey, thank you for tuning in today. Your support is much appreciated. Please consider leaving a review, sharing on social media, and telling your friends about my podcast. You can also join my newsletter at johnmayfield.com. Remember, take what resonates from Zoetic Chat and enrich your life with wisdom in all areas. And stay tuned for the next episode.